In this video, I'll be doing a drawing of a skull. I consider this an important exercise. In any drawing method regarding the human figure, we always consider the skeleton, which lies just underneath what we are trying to represent. Any realistic depiction of a human being or animal will consider the scaffold, which is the bone structure that the forms we recognize is built on top of. The landmarks for things like cheekbones, jaw, eye sockets all reflect trying to find what is underneath and how these all form one unit, which is the skull. When we use whatever drawing method to construct the head, whether you use Loomis or you use the Riley method or you do mass drawing or whatever method you use to construct the head, we always consider the landmarks which reveal the foundation of the head, again, the skull. The thing that strikes me about drawing the skull is that it's actually very, very complicated. One would assume that the real complication is what we see on the surface, on the face, because you have all the fullness of the detail, the eyes, the nose, hair, whatever. But there are so many twists and turns that these bones make, going from the cheek to the nose to the eye sockets. It seems like turn on different corners and just go right into the next form. The jaw alone by itself curves and twists from its hinges to the chin and into the sockets that hold the teeth, right? And some of it is subtle, some of it very definite, but it does all these twisting and turning. So it really is not as simple a subject as you would assume. Drawing this seemingly simple object can be an eye-opener. I have to remind myself to look for the big shapes and solve the larger areas that encompass the skull, exactly as if I were drawing a Loomis head, so I don't get lost trying to render subtle detail. The details are fun, but it's really better to study the big, obvious shapes on the surface, the things that we would recognize as landmarks and help us in our drawing with the human face. We can get lost in these details thinking that the picture is all about the details, but it is never about the details. It's about the foundation, which is, like we're trying to get away from when we see a face, the details of the eyes, the nose in its fullness. We're trying to understand the structure underneath. So in the same way, even when you're drawing the actual structure, you're still trying to understand the bigness of it before you get lost into the little details. And the little details can be fun, and we kind of get fooled into the little details. A lot of times you see these amazing videos on Instagram, on Facebook, on different social media, where you have these artists and they're drawing very, very detailed, photorealistic drawings of faces or features and so forth, and those are great and they are fine. I'm not trying to criticize them, but the thing about it is that when you're drawing, the drawing is never about the details. You get lost into the idea of, it looks like a picture or it looks like a photo, and if that's what you want to do, then you can always just take the picture and you're done with it, because you're not going to outdo the photo. But if you're trying to use the medium of a pencil or paint for what it is and trying to do a painting or a drawing, then it's beyond the details. It's the details can enhance things. The details are fun. The details add interest to your picture. But if the foundation is not there, it all falls apart. And if all you're doing is copying a photo, you're just copying the surface of something. You're just copying the surface detail, and you're not going beyond that. And I'm going to talk more about photos a little later on in this video. But I just want to mention here that what you're going for, especially when you're studying the skull, you can't learn much by just studying the details. You will learn a great more about the skull by studying the big shapes and how those details fall within the big shape. Because when we recognize someone from a distance, we don't see details. We see the big shape of that person's face or head, because that's what we can read from a distance. We can't read freckles. We can't read what color the person's eye is. We can't read certain things, but we can read the big things, right? And those are the things that matter, because those are the things that form the foundation. The details add more surface interest, but that's about it. You know, you can take or leave the details, but you have to have those big things right, the big structures, the big planes, because that's what helps you to recognize the object that you're drawing. George Bridgman, an instructor at the Art Students League, a very, very famous instructor, long time ago. And you would probably recognize him more, or recognize his name more, by the series of books that are published on by Dover Publications on anatomy by Bridgman. Very, very excellent books. But the thing that I want to mention about Bridgman here is that he actually instructed his students to draw hundreds of skulls, an exercise which some found boring. How do I know this? Norman Rockwell, famous American illustrator, was also a student of George Bridgman at the Art Students League. And I know that he mentioned in his book, Rockwell on Rockwell, I know there are tons of books on Rockwell and by Rockwell. Actually, there's only a few books by Rockwell. But one of them is Rockwell on Rockwell. And it's it's his instruction booklet on how his painting methods and so forth. And he mentioned in that book, which is out of print, if I didn't say that already, he mentioned in that book that in his class in George Bridgman, the exercise of drawing 100 skulls or hundreds of skulls, whichever it was, he did not like it as a student. But he came to appreciate it much later when, as a professional, he wrote about how he really could feel the skull structure underneath whenever he drew or painted the human face. He understood it so well because of that exercise that he did of drawing hundreds and hundreds of skulls. This is something that helped later on. It's an exercise that continues to give long-term benefits. This is an exercise that I have done on and off. Not nearly as much as I need to. I had a similar experience to Norman Rockwell, in that I had an instructor in college at a life drawing class, right? And what we did was we continued to, before the model came in, there was a skeleton, a life-size skeleton that the instructor had inside the class. And what he would do before the model came in, as I said, he would have us draw the skeleton every morning in his class. And it is an exercise that I dreaded, drawing this skeleton. I found it, at the time, I found it boring. At the same time, I found it a challenge because, you're drawing and you're trying to do an accurate drawing of the entire skeleton, the rib cage, the spinal cord, and so forth. And I learned that and from there I learned that, you know what, I really couldn't get caught in the details with how complicated that skeleton was. I had to look for the major shapes. Like, I wouldn't break down the spinal cord into every little, I'm not doing a medical illustration. I'm trying to figure out the big shape of the thing, the big shape of the pelvis, the rib cage, the skull, trying to figure out the arms. I got into it because I had to, but at the same time, with everything, I wanted to do a good job with it. So I just threw myself in there, even though I didn't like the exercise. Now, what happened was, after time, I started to notice some things when the model was posing. Landmarks that indicated the bone underneath. My drawing improved because I had a better understanding of the structure underneath and not just the surface detail. I regret that although I continued to draw from life, I did not carry this exercise on as much as I should have. But there is no time like the present to rid myself of this regret and continue on this ritual. There should be rituals that help you with, that guide you in drawing. Just like musicians practice scales, and they do it because it helps them master the what it is. It helps them master their musicianship, and you should get into some kind of practice that helps you master your ability to draw and to paint. Whether it's like, for a long time, the thing that I would do two things. I would draw every day, and I would also make it a rule for myself that whatever I'm drawing in the present, I have to try to outdo what I had done previously. And that was just a goal I set for myself in order to improve. Now, it doesn't matter whether or not, at that particular moment I achieved that goal. It's kind of cumulative, right? It's like the more you try, and you might trip up, but you keep on going, and you continue to get better and better as you go along. And you might not see the progress with the next drawing or the next 10 drawings, but over time you will see the progress. Like when I did those drawings in class of the skeleton and the model posed right afterwards, I didn't immediately see the benefit that exercise gave me. It took some time for me to notice the improvement in my own artwork, but it came, and it came maybe after weeks or after a month or two in the class, and it showed up, and it became something. And it is not the first time that has happened to me. There was another exercise which we did. I don't know if anyone's familiar with something called blind contour drawing. Blind contour drawing is where you don't look at the sheet of paper that you're drawing at. You keep your eye on the model, and you draw with one single line without lifting your hand off the paper. So, and it's a contour drawing, right? It's just the outside line. So it was another exercise that I hated. And the way we did it in class is that we drew on large sheets of newsprint, and we used a sumi brush and sumi ink. And the only time I was allowed to take my eye off the model if I felt I had to refill my brush with ink. And so we would do this for months, and I did one lousy drawing after another lousy drawing. And then I don't know how long it took, but after a while it started to click, and the drawing was so much better, and it was just, and you had to do it on practically blind in terms of just not looking at your paper. You had to just keep your eye on the model and try my best not to lift my hand from the paper, which I occasionally did. But I learned even from lifting my hand where to place it on the paper so that virtually there was an unbroken line. And I couldn't tell you how I did that except for the constant practice. And it was something that I hated to do. I definitely did not like this exercise. But when I saw the benefit for it after a long time of doing it, I genuinely liked the exercise. I realized that I was getting something out of it that was helping me to improve my drawing. Although I don't have a life-size skeleton to practice with these days, I do have this small plastic skull which I purchased on Amazon some time back. Now I'll leave a link to it. It's very inexpensive. The skeleton has a bit of a character, having taken a fall from my desk at one point, which resulted in the 3 upper teeth breaking off. It gives it some character, I think. It's still usable and a bit more interesting, maybe. These plastic skulls are inexpensive and can be purchased on Amazon at different sizes. You can get a life-size skull. You can get, mine is like a really small, fits in my palm type of or size skull. But if you want to spend money, like I said, you can buy a life-size one, and that'll cost you anywhere from $25 to $79. You know, and I mean, for $25 is not bad. When you're paying the higher price, I believe you get a stand to put it on. Like, I don't have a stand to put this small skull on. I have to try and keep it in front of me, you know, try and balance it somehow. You know, apart from this plastic skull, just to mention, the tools I'm using for the exercise are a combination of hard and soft pencils, anywhere from F to the F to the H's to 2 or 4B, 2 and a 4B actually. Kneaded erasers, of course, and plastic erasers to, you know, erase more stubborn areas and so forth, and to make like the larger changes. And of course a paper stump. You know, so those are basically the tools that I'm using to draw with. I find that drawing from this little plastic skull model is a lot more beneficial than drawing from a photograph, which I mentioned I was going to talk about a little while ago, because in a photo you don't get a sense of the air around the object. It's a flat two-dimensional surface that you have to work with as far as a photograph is concerned. If you see something that you can't exactly make out, or you can't understand in that photograph, you can't really examine it beyond what the two-dimensional photograph represents. Whereas if you examine an object more closely in real life, you can examine it from all sides. You can walk around it. You can lift it up. You know, if it's not a person, you can lift it up. If you have only the photo to work from, you know, that's still much better than having nothing. But to see the object in real life, to see the object in front of you, you'll have a better and a more rewarding experience than you would in a photograph, because you're just limited to drawing from that photograph. And I use photographs, okay? It's fine. Drawing from life really is the secret to drawing from imagination. That is, the knowledge that we accumulate in long practice provides us with information that we need to recreate those things from imagination and, of course, enhance or redesign or create something new. Photo reference is useful, but less rewarding than having a real hands-on knowledge, which the practice of drawing from life rewards you with. I use photo reference. I do. And you can see from the videos that I've posted here that sometimes I post videos with my photo reference right there, so you can see what I'm working from, right? And photo references are great, and I use photo references because it's convenient. Okay, either the convenience of the camera. One of the things that one of the ways photos can be an advantage is that you can take a quick shot of something that you know is going to go away right away, right? Whether it's a quick shot of somebody running or somebody walking by you, or you're just in a situation where it's the right setup. I can remember this artist, he did a couple walking on a beach, and it's a beautiful watercolor, and you can see all these different colors that were provided and worked on the figures that were there, right? And how, it was the reflection of the colors and its surroundings. And I'm sure that beyond the photograph, his memory was working here too, because the photographs are notorious for not being able to pick up everything that we see or everything that we remember from a certain experience. Like if you were to paint a landscape and you took a photograph of it, sometimes that photograph isn't exactly what you remember, or how you don't get that same feeling. So you have to add a bit of memory to that. And so this artist did this painting, like I said, of this couple in the colors and the background of the sky and everything. That whole beach scene was beautifully done, and it was like I was sitting on the beach watching it, right? And it was so it gives you that feeling. But the thing is that as inadequate as that photo might have been, what it was adequate enough to give enough information for the artist to work from. So there are benefits to photography. I'm not downing photography or downing working from photos, obviously, since I do it myself, but it is useful, and I do use it, especially for the convenience of the camera. But I much prefer to work from life, and I do it every time I get a chance to. And having this plastic skull really is a way of doing it, because even though it's not a real skull, it is a real object. It's like doing a still life, and still lifes are still real objects which you can use, in real objects in space which you can use to help your understanding of drawing from life. Because even though you're not drawing the figure, you're still drawing something that in its environment that it's helpful. It's helpful because you're drawing something in real space, and you're getting an understanding of the way the light falls on it, or the light reflects on it, and exactly as it would if you were drawing a person. And like I said, even though the forms might not be a person, they are still forms, and it's still useful. And you know what? It helps. It helps to draw from life this way, and I prefer to do it this way. This also helps me in enhancing the photo reference, because when the photo reference can't give me everything, or say the photo isn't the most perfect photo, there's a bit of a blur, or it pixelates and so forth, but there's enough information for me to work from, and I have to use the memory of having worked from life to add to that. So work from life adds to your imagination. It makes the things you do from imagination more believable, and it gives it more substance, because you're using the information that you've had from the experience of working from life, and it adds to the experience of working from a photo that's based, and I can work from it, from these blurry or pixelated photo, based upon the knowledge that I've accumulated through the practice of drawing from life. However, I do recommend that you draw from life. I do recommend that you also use the best reference that you have available, instead of just terrible, especially when you're starting out. But right now that's about it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I like I said, I'll leave a link for getting plastic skulls, so you can do this yourself. And sometimes I do take photos of the plastic skull that I have, like I said, just for convenience. But really, there's nothing better than to take any object and using it to draw from, and rather than taking a picture of it and drawing it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm trying to stick to that routine of posting a video every Tuesday, so you can be back here on Tuesday for my next video. Let me know how you feel about this video. I talked about so many things: drawing from life, drawing from photos, and just drawing the skull and understanding the skull, and how much that helps you. Also, the practice of drawing, right? The discipline of drawing, of having a routine that you draw, and something that you stick to, so that you can see the improvement in your own artwork. So let me know what you think. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will be back the following Tuesday with another video. Oh, and by the way, I'm just adding this as a way that if anyone's interested in supporting what I do in terms of this channel, I also have quite a few videos over on Gumroad that are video tutorials on anything from some on digital art, some on gouache, and so forth. So you can purchase them over on Gumroad. I'll leave the link below. And again, I will be back next week with another video for my YouTube channel. See you guys then. Bye-bye.